concessions granted to 15 essential goods, while bus fares increased by 6%. Rift among bus unions over the new bus fares. Several factions questioned the fate of VAT.
මේ බද්ද ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න ඕන නම් දැරිය හැකි වන ආකාරයට ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම සඳහා සංශෝධනය ගෙන්න එහෙම නැත්නම් සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරන්න.
ගෙවිය යුතු ණය ප්‍රමාණය වෙනුවෙන් අපි తాවකාලිකව 104ක බද්දක් අපි වැඩි කරා.
VAT ඉහළ දාලා නෙමෙයිනේ රාජපක්ෂගේ හොරණා ගෙවනවා කිව්වේ රත්තරන් අස්සෝ මාලිගාවල් විකුණලා සුබගීත ඇති කරනවා කියලා.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your Prime Time News Bulletin. I'm Shane Silva.
And I'm Bernadine Jai Singha. Very good evening to you. Now let's take a look at your stories in detail.
Some good news for the general public as the Cabinet decided today to provide concessions to 15 essential items including potatoes, dal and sugar. These concessions will be provided by imposing a maximum retail price for these items.
A discussion was held between wholesale importers and several government ministers today, subsequent to which a media briefing was convened at the Ministry of Finance. Wholesale importers pointed out that there is a wide disparity between the prices of wholesale and retail goods. The wholesale importers say that the government must intervene to implement a program to provide essential items to the consumer without any intermediaries. It was decided at this discussion that by displaying the prices of the daily essential food items via the media, the consumer would receive the opportunity of purchasing these goods at a fair price. The retail trade is currently operating under the notion that the government does not enact the law and that there are no checks and balances. We made decisions based on three categories. First is to further broaden the wholesale import trade and create an atmosphere where the government works closer with the private sector, which means getting down goods to the country at the lowest price. Second is to function in a manner which implements this categorization. Third is to declare 15 items as essential items and impose a stipulated price for them and maintain it for an extended period of time. The President issued an order to the Minister of Commerce to commence raids in every district starting from tomorrow via the Consumer Affairs Authority. Now this time around, the prices of 15 essential items have been reduced. Measures have been taken to provide a controlled price for items such as sugar, dal, Mysuru dal, potatoes, onions, chilies, canned fish, green gram, kidney beans, garlic, urad dal, coriander, cumin seeds, fennel seeds, chickpeas, soya, palm oil, dry fish, sprats, moldy fish and turmeric. I believe that steps are underway to present the Gazette notification in this regard either tomorrow or the day after. All of this is being done for the good of the people.
It was announced today that bus fares will once again be raised, this time by 6%. Subject Minister Ashoka Singh has stated that hike in bus fares has also received cabinet approval.
When Newsfirst made inquiries in this regard, the Deputy Minister of Transport, Ashoka Singh, has said that the increase of bus fares will come into effect from the 1st of August. Accordingly, the Cabinet-approved bus fare hike would be implemented through the National Transport Commission. Bus fares may be increased once a year based on a request extended by the bus owners. So when they made a request for about 15%, we have reduced it to 6%. That's what happened here. There is no other reason as to why it should be increased. Has the price of diesel increased? No. The taxes on spare parts were removed. So should the price be increased? No. If you look at what they have said, it is all because of unnecessary things. They say money has to be paid when they sign on the timetable. They say we have to make unnecessary payments to these places. These are the reasons they have brought forward. Meanwhile, opposing views are being expressed by private bus associations. According to the national policy on bus fares, there should have been a 12% increase in the bus fare. We don't know if the government is willingly taking these steps in order to destroy the private bus industry. We do not agree with this decision. The bus owners expect the minimum fare to increase from 8 rupees to 10 rupees. We stated on an earlier occasion as well, we are prepared to accept the bus fare amendments. Based on our initial calculations, we received 3.2%. However, we have received an increase of 6%.
Yesterday, News First announced the government the 100-day initiative aimed at resolving issues that we discovered during our journey across the nation through the government the door-to-door campaign.
Following the announcement of the Gum at the 100-day initiative yesterday, over 20 million rupees has been pledged within the past 24 hours by the general public, organizations and institutions.
Earlier this evening, the News First Gum at the team met with Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake and presented specific examples of problems and issues identified during the Gum at the door-to-door campaign, which are in need of urgent solutions.
The discussions ended fruitfully with the ministers agreeing to support the Gum at the 100-day initiative by immediately doing what is necessary to resolve these issues. I invited you here to support and assist your program. We are bound to implement it. I think that when we look at these projects, just as we as a government will intervene to provide answers and solutions to the complex issues in these helpless areas, we also commend you for exposing these issues via the media and providing solutions to these people. So we have happily decided to work together with you and extend our fullest support to this endeavor. Let's solve these issues together.
Brandix Lanka Limited has also come forward to pledge their support to the Gum at the 100-day initiative.
What we realize is that we can't, company like Brandix, while we are pretty big, we can't do it on our own. We realize that. And we also know about the Sahanayatra program of MTV and how successful it has been. So when we were wondering how we can do something, the first name that came up was TV. Looking at the circumstances now, I would think it's absolutely essential because it also has to be a partnership. Companies can't do everything. The private sector can't do everything on their own. Neither can the civil society. I think there has to be partnership for us to make a bigger impact. That's one. And two, our theory is there's no point in complaining. If you can do something, do it. And that's kind of the motto we live by as well.
The News First team will commence the program on the 20th of July together with the assistance of the general public.
We at News First aim to do everything in our power to rectify the issues that are yet to be rectified by officials.
You too can join hands with us on this endeavour to reach out to fellow Sri Lankans in need. Contact us on 0114 896 896. The number once again 0114 896 896. You can also email at 100days@maharaja.lk.
You can also reach us via email on 100days@maharaja.lk. Email on 100days@maharaja.lk. On Twitter at Newsfirst.SL and Newsfirst.SL on Facebook.
In the meantime, yesterday the Supreme Court issued an interim order preventing the implementation of the increase in value-added tax as well as the nation-building tax.
Court held that the interim order would be operative until the relevant bill is passed in Parliament or until the petitions are fully heard and concluded.
Various views are being expressed with regard to the value-added tax.
This government collected taxes from the general public from the 2nd of May until yesterday in an illegal manner without making amends to the necessary acts. We informed the Supreme Court that this is wrong and to prevent them from looting public funds. Now Parliament has an opportunity to make amendments to these taxes. If the people can't bear it, then reduce the taxes, else reject the bill completely. If you take the period from the 2nd of May to date, not a single businessman had remitted the money collected through VAT or the Department of Inland Revenue. It is not with the government, but it is with certain businessmen. What is going to happen to the money?
The
The Rajapaksa government obtained loans to the tune of 10,000 billion rupees from foreign nations, banks and institutions. We had to increase VAT by 4% because we have to repay a 10 billion rupee installment annually. Therefore, in order to make that payment, we had to temporarily increase the tax by 4%. The legislature must impose taxes considering the betterment of the public. It is not said that the Rajapaksa loans will be repaid through the increase of VAT. We were told that the golden horses and the mansions will be sold off and the earnings will be presented to the public, and thereafter they will work for the betterment of the people. When seeking votes, they didn't say they were going to bring benefits to the people by taxing the people. We also stepped on the streets to change the government. I asked the people to watch closely who will raise their hands against imposing taxes on the people.
ඔබලාට විරුද්ධව බදු ගහන්න අත උස්සන්නේ කවුද කියලා.
මුදල් අමාත්‍යතුමා
The Minister of Finance made it clear that this tax increase is not a long-term plan. We hope to reduce VAT as soon as possible and ensure that the people do not face any form of injustice. Yesterday, the Prime Minister also said that 15 essential items will be exempted from VAT.
අපි VAT වලින් නිදහස් කරනවා.
දැන් ආණ්ඩුව
It is fine if the government increases VAT from 11% to 15% in order to increase the revenue of the government. The joint opposition is not against it. What we ask is to suspend the 15% VAT imposed on patients, suspend the VAT imposed on telecommunication. If the retail and wholesale income is over 250 million rupees as was during the Rajapaksa administration, impose the tax. There is no need to appoint committees to inquire into reasons why shops are being closed.
මොකද කියලා හොය ඉන්න දෙයක් නෑ.
The recent budget of the government revealed that the government incurs a loss of 40 billion rupees when vehicles are imported to the country on a duty-free basis. However, duty-free vehicles for MPs continue to reach Sri Lankan shores. A petition was also filed with the Supreme Court citing that the duty-free permit granted to MPs is in violation of the law, and this petition will be taken up on the 18th.
Taking into account the losses caused to the government via duty-free permits, on one occasion it was decided to cancel the issuing of duty-free vehicle permits to parliamentarians. However, on the 2nd of May, that decision was reversed and it was decided to provide all MPs with duty-free vehicle permits. In June, the government presented a supplementary estimate seeking 1.17 billion rupees to import brand new vehicles for cabinet, state and deputy ministers. Funds were allocated under this to purchase vehicles for 32 ministers, state ministers and deputy ministers attached to 22 ministries. Although a decision was reached to postpone the importing of vehicles have been imported under the permits issued to MPs.
දැන් මේ බලපත්‍ර නිකුත් කළා.
Through these permits, around 4 to 5 vehicles have already been released from the harbour. The duty on one vehicle comes to 33.5 million rupees. How much does an MP pay? Only 1,750 rupees for customs to enter the data into the system. They are not subject to pay tax.
බදු 7-5ක්වත් අය කරන්නේ.
Provisions have been made for MPs to import duty-free vehicles under an Excise Special Provisions Act. The Act notes that the Minister may, having regard to the economic development of the country by order published in the Gazette, exempt from the payment of the excise duty payable under this Act any such excisable articles or any such class or description of excisable articles as are or is specified in such order subject to such condition as may be specified in the order. It notes that where any such order is so revoked, the excise duty payable on the exempted articles shall be paid by the manufacturer, producer, importer or consignee of such article to the Director General, and such excise duty may be recovered under the provisions of this Act. Attorney at Law Nagananda Kodituaku, challenging this duty-free permit system, notes that the above condition is never imposed on any permit issued by the government.
අන්ලස් පනතේ 70 වන අග
Article 70 of the Bribery Act notes that any public servant who, with intent to cause wrongful or unlawful loss to the government or to confer a wrongful or unlawful benefit, favour or advantage on himself or any person in an offence,
මේ දූෂණය කියන වරද කරනවා. මොකද මේ
what do they do with the permit? They take it today and sell it tomorrow for 25 million rupees. Is this not an act for personal benefit?
මගේ පුද්ගලික වාසිය නෙමෙයිද?
A group including family members of parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa, who was placed under remand custody over the alleged misuse and laundering of a sum of 70 million rupees, visited him today to inquire into his well-being.
MP Namal Rajapaksa is currently in remand custody at the New Magazine prison in Colombo. The parliamentarian was visited by his mother, former First Lady Shiranti Rajapaksa, this morning. Later, a group of MPs representing the joint opposition also visited Namal Rajapaksa. Well, yes, I'm sure there are others who are happy. We wonder if we will also be put behind bars very soon.
We have to wait and see who is next on the list. This is a government which is trying to undermine the public views against them. This is a government which is incapable.
Those who visited MP Nama Rajapaksa at the prison expressed their views as they were exiting the prison's complex.
He has exercised well and is mingling with the inmates. He told me that he is happy and willing to face any challenge. My two brothers as well as my father were imprisoned on an earlier occasion, so this has now become something quite normal. This is now like our second home. We are now constantly in and out of it. No, we actually went just to speak to him, but all three of us usually exercise together at the sports ministry gym. We exercise every day, so I think he had exercised today as well. He usually does yoga and meditation. I have no intentions to enter politics because by looking at what is happening in politics, I feel no need to do so.
The inauguration of the National Management Accounting Conference 2016, organized by the Certified Management Accountants of CMA, was held last evening in Colombo. MTV Channel Private Limited is the electronic media partner of the conference, which commenced.
The CMA National Management Accounting Conference 2016 is being held under the theme Total Cost Management, Key Enabler of Economic Development. The objective of the conference is to highlight the importance of cost management to improve competitiveness, efficiency and effectiveness of organization.
Setting up a CMA in Sri Lanka also enhances our accounting in par with other South Asian countries such as India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. What is more important is that this has also enabled CMA to become a member of the South Asian Federation of Accountants, the International Federation of Accountants, the global body for the accounting profession, and more recently a member of the Confederation of Asian and Pacific Accountants.
During the first technical session of the conference, which took place this morning, Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayake elaborated on the IMF agreement.
IMF was something which was not necessary for our country. But with the economic turbulences that were there in the country, we had to navigate ourselves through these turbulent times. So it was with the greatest of concern or with abundance of prudence that we decided that going with the IMF would be far more beneficial than to be outside. Now, there are certain conditions that obviously come along with it. But then, if those conditions are any case what has got to be carried out or to be implemented by a financial disciplined government, then what does it matter if those conditions do come in? And we have, with the IMF, been in very tough discussions going on, and we have got what is best to the country. And the proof of the pudding is yesterday we went for an international bond, and we wanted between 1 to 1.5 billion, and we got 5 times that, at rates which were better than what we got the last time. So with downgradings that have taken place owing to the previous administration activities, we have been able to show some financial discipline and commitment.
The conference is scheduled to conclude tomorrow.
U.S. Assistant Secretaries of State Tom Malinowski and Nisha Biswal arrived in the country today on an official visit. The duo are scheduled to meet Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe tomorrow and will also meet senior ministers and parliamentarians during their visit to Sri Lanka.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights and Labour Tom Malinowski arrived in the country early this morning. Later, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs Nisha Desai-Biswal arrived in the country on a 2-day official visit. The two U.S. Assistant Secretaries of State met with Foreign Affairs Minister Mangala Samaraweera this evening in Colombo.
Sri Lanka itself has been on a remarkable trajectory of addressing not only the internal issues that have challenged it, but also of engaging with the broader international community in a spirit of partnership and dialogue. And the United States has welcomed a deepening of the ties between our two countries.
Without a peace dividend, it will be harder to pursue reconciliation. But reconciliation is also advanced, as we have seen in country after country in the world, where people can come together rather than allowing themselves to be split apart. And I think in a larger sense, this reminds us why what is happening in Sri Lanka is so important to people all over the world. Because if you look at what's happening in the world today, there's obviously not a lot of good news to be found. But a lot of the problems that we see are rooted in something that Sri Lanka knows all too well, in this contest between the politics of division and the politics of common ground. We've seen, unfortunately, in many places around the world that it is easier to win in politics by making simple appeals to racial or religious or national pride than by doing the hard work of government. Easier sometimes to blame others for our problems than to take responsibility ourselves. In that way, you can distract people from your own failures and lack of vision.
The annual gender meeting of the Indian CEO Forum took place in Colombo this evening.
The event was graced by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, YK Singha. Among the attendees was CEO of the Capital Maharaja Organisation Limited, Mohan Berara, who also introduced the Indian High Commissioner to the gathering.
Mr. Sinha is a seasoned diplomat, and during his career spanning more than 35 years, he has handled several important assignments at the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi, and in Indian diplomatic missions in South Asia, the Middle East, Europe, South America, and the permanent mission of India at the United Nations headquarters in New York. He holds the rank of Secretary to the Government of India. Before coming to Sri Lanka, he was the Additional Secretary heading the Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran division at the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi.
Our bilateral relationship is sound, but I think we have much more to do to further enhance these links. We talked about bilateral trade at a healthy $4.71 billion last year in 2015. And what is also important and noteworthy is the fact that last year the Indian exports to Sri Lanka utilized just 6.71% or 6.77% of our total exports to Sri Lanka availed of concessions under the free trade agreement. While Sri Lankan exports to India, 63.1% of the exports came under the free trade agreement. And it's quite clear how the free trade agreement has helped both countries in expanding our bilateral links.
All the investment incentives are of no use if you haven't got a stable economy. And that depends on your deficit. To reduce the deficit, we've also got to increase our revenue. We are hitting a world record that we had given so many tax cuts and stopped collecting taxes that our revenue was by 2014 was about 12% of the GDP. We hope by 2020 to go up to 16%. And that's one of the reasons for expanding the VAT without in any way affecting the essential items. And today the government decided as policy we will ensure that 15 essential items are available to the consumer at reasonable prices, and where necessary the government will not hesitate to intervene by subsidizing the prices. Unless your stomach's full and the pocket's full, forget about any economic reform.
Hussein Khomeini, who is an Iranian scholar and reformist cleric, engaged in a cordial meeting with the Iranian community in Sri Lanka today. Hussein Khomeini is the grandson of Grand Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, who is the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The event took place at the Sri Lanka branch of the Al-Mustafa International University. The Iranian-based university has a branch network the world over. Members of the local Muslim community were also present for the event. Earlier in the day, the grandson of Iranian religious leader Ayatollah Khomeini, Hussein Khomeini, met Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees.
The Anti-Corruption Front says that officials who contributed to the massive losses that have been incurred by the state over the controversial coal deal should be held accountable. Speaking in Colombo today, the front pointed out that the corruption that took place during these coal transactions will be exposed through the audit reports.
In a letter dated the 2nd of March 2016, the front had requested the Auditor General's Department to inquire from the Lanka Coal Company as to the reasons for spot purchases of coal from the international market. In its letter, the front had inquired as to why $58 was spent on a metric ton of coal when the market price at the time was $51.29. It was highlighted that $6.71 was spent in excess of market prices. According to audit reports, a loss of 1.803 billion rupees had been incurred through the purchase of 1.92 million metric tons of coal in this manner. Until now, the Ministry of Power and Energy has not provided an appropriate response to the audited finances. Yesterday, we informed the Minister, Deputy Minister and Secretary of the Ministry of Power and Energy that the manner in which these accounts were made was wrong. According to the accepted law in this country, responses should be provided if accounts have been incorrectly handled. When responses are not provided in this manner, what are the next steps that the Auditor General's Department should take? Are they prepared to take these steps? Who will be taking these steps? In the meantime, a loss of 1.2 billion rupees that was suffered by the country due to a company that bid a high amount yet was awarded the tender to supply coal to the country was exposed following an order issued by the Supreme Court. There is sufficient evidence to charge 5 officials through these facts, including the present Secretary of the Ministry of Power and Energy. It has been over 2 weeks since this order was issued. When all these questions were raised, they told the media that they will appoint a 3-member committee to look into this matter. The committee was only effective on paper. It became the subject of much ridicule. We request the ministry not to make such jokes. Do not aid and abet rogues by protecting them or overlooking what they have done. If the previous government stole or if this government stole, it is still the money of the public that is being lost. Therefore, this money should be returned to the country. The benefits received from these monies should be passed on to the people. We call on the Hapana government to stop the thievery and the use of this money to govern this country.
With that, we wrap up Primetime News. I'm Bernadine Jai Singha.
And I'm Sharon Silva. Good night.